Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year, Michelle. And welcome to the Growth Street Podcast. This is a place where, I'm here to interview a lot of career experts, masters, and, really trying to provide value for people trying to learn in career development. So yeah, I'm Darsh Patel, the host of the Growth Street Podcast, and I'm joined by Michelle Feinstein, the current general manager and vice president of Salesforce Wealth Management. Some could say the queen of technology. And yeah, so a couple more things about her. She was named the 2022 Woman in Wealth Tech by F2, the Consultant of the Year by Waters Magazine. But more than that, she is a mom, she is a wife, and she is a dear mentor to me. So yeah, I really appreciate you being here. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that was pretty good, Darsh. It's my pleasure to join you today on this podcast. So thank you. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. For me, this has been a long time in the works. And we're really here to want to have a great conversation, but also share a lot of, important things for, people around the world that can really benefit from, my knowledge, but also yours on, career development. So kind of going into something I was really excited to talk about today was different paths leading to the same place and how career journeys look different for everyone. For me, I really noticed how when I was, kind of growing up, how we can get to all these different places and be successful, but it doesn't take the stereotypical path that, everyone kind of talks about. So I'm really curious what your thoughts are on, career journeys, career developments, and how you can really get to where you want to be by kind of following your own journey.
Yeah. So I'll take it way, way back because I'm a little bit older than you are. So when I was graduating high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to go to college for. So I went in undecided. And during my journey, I was an English major and I wanted to do anything that would keep me away from math.
Okay.
So I started to do communications plus being an English major. That led me to teaching. So I started to focus on becoming an elementary education teacher. And it's really important. If you're going to be a teacher, you need to be passionate about two things: children and doing lesson plans and bringing something interesting into the classroom.
Yeah.
So they placed me in a tough neighborhood in New Jersey as my first experience. And my class was fourth graders. So I go into this class and I start doing teaching, and the class probably had 40 students in there, which was a lot for a 21-year-old for their first time interacting as a teacher. I rose to the occasion. I was doing lesson plans, but in my heart of hearts, I didn't feel passionate every single day to wake up and come be a teacher. And I said to myself, do I want to come and be a teacher to 40 students every day and in the future have my own kids and go home and take care of them? The answer was no. But that answer scared me because then I said, well, what am I going to do with my life? I'm about to graduate college with an elementary education degree, no business background, no tech.
Wow.
Well, I decided I wasn't going to be a teacher. I took a temp job, and that led me into the world of technology by accident. And everything went from there. So I guess the message is don't be afraid to try something, fail at it, and then go down a different path.
Yeah, definitely. For one, that's a crazy start to your career. I think for me on, the receiving end, to see where you are now and what you're doing, to really hear how, that's the kind of the career path you started, not really having a direct business related college experience, starting off as a teacher. And now, even though, you're a teacher in some ways, but to see kind of how that's kind of changed over the course of the last, 10, 20 years, like that's a really, important thing I think people need to know.
I'll add something to it.
Yeah.
I think that also when you're going to make a change like that, you have to be humble. And so when I started to step into the world of business, I took a job as a secretary stepping into that world.
Yeah.
I wasn't in some type of analyst program. I wasn't, a college grad that automatically was given a managerial position. So for 2 years, I was a secretary, and I watched college students come in, and they were allowing them to take their Series 7, which is a really important exam in financial services. But they weren't giving folks like me a shot at it. So I asked them over a couple of months, please give me a shot. And they said, all right, we'll let you take the Series 7, but if you don't pass it, you're out, meaning you're fired.
Yeah.
Well, I took that Series 7. I studied for 6 months. I failed it.
Yeah.
I called my boss terrified. Because I had so much grit and determination, they said, we're going to give you one more chance to take this exam. It's a 6-hour exam. I took it and I passed it. That changed everything. At that point, they put me into a program where there were other Ivy League type students. I was not Ivy League. I graduated from William Patterson College in New Jersey.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you, if you have grit, determination, and you're not afraid to ask for what you want, life might put interesting opportunities your way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. For me, it's funny because, everyone in my family, as I'm sure you've been around us for a while, is we have a huge focus on academics.
Yes.
My brother, 4.0 student at Penn State. My cousin, 4.0 student at TCNJ, now in med school. And I was kind of the oddball in the group. I was the, you know, the black sheep. I was different. And I could not sit in class. I could not get a 4.0. And I tried. I'm someone who, for whatever reason, was gravitated towards people, not necessarily those traditional learning styles. And so for me, my first college semester, I really bombed it. I was taking all these new classes. I didn't really have any older cousins or mentors to kind of guide me through the beginning of college. And, you know, I had a 2.1 GPA. I realized I did not want to be a doctor, which is what, you know, my parents, you know, kind of wanted me to be at the time at least. And I had to figure out, one, what am I good at and how can I kind of get this process started? So kind of going to what you were saying regarding your first experience, you don't need the world. It takes a lot of humble beginnings to really get the ball rolling. And for me, I'd say really do a lot of self-analysis on what am I good at and what do I like? And let me try to find some kind of hole somewhere where I could be of value to somebody and get some experience. Yeah. So yeah, for me, that was, you know, people kind of unpacking how things are now. People, you know, really want paid internships. They want to make $20 an hour, $30 an hour. For me, it was I needed something for my resume. I had some pretty cool high school jobs, you know, working for Chick-fil-A and things like that. But I came up with this plan. Let me get some kind of experience, some kind of internship and an ambassadorship, and keep flipping that into another opportunity. So my first experience was actually me being a brand ambassador for this technology service called Dashlane. And what I would do is I would stand in front of the library and have kids sign up for this app, and I would give them Starbucks gift cards for doing so. And you know, for most people say that's not an internship, that's not an experience. But for me, I was able to say that I was a sales on-campus ambassador, and I turned that into my next internship, which was also unpaid, which was a marketing internship. But being able to do these smaller experiences, you know, led me to slightly greater ones every time. And, you know, I didn't want to be a social media, you know, marketing person.
Right.
You know, my whole career went down the whole sales route, being in tech, being in sports. But getting started somewhere just allowed more doors to open up for me, which is kind of going to what you're talking about. And those skills really kind of grow on each other.
Yeah. So let me ask you, if you were sitting alone in Maryland in your dorm room, do you think that internships would have just landed on your plate if you didn't pursue them?
Yeah, great question. I would say definitely not. I think that, you know, it's the onus is on us in a time where we have so many resources to go out and get things. But what I think the problem is that most people don't know that these opportunities exist or where to find them. So for example, for me, you know, I knew from a young age, because of you, honestly, that to build a LinkedIn atmosphere, the second I graduated high school, I built a LinkedIn. I posted how I worked for Chick-fil-A.
You did a lot more than build a LinkedIn. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. And doing things like that and kind of becoming this atmosphere on campus, I knew I had to go to career fairs, talk to people, cold approach on LinkedIn. And these were the things that allowed me to get opportunities. It wasn't just clicking apply online. It was talking to people, figuring out what's needed, what stuff are people doing, and learning from people.
Let me pause you for a second, because I think the approach you took with reaching out and finding people to talk to was pretty unique. Yeah. Right. So some folks they'll interview their family or friends or neighbors, but you took it to the next level. So let's talk about how you used LinkedIn as a college student to build a network.
Definitely. I think the great thing LinkedIn allows you to have is it's almost like a self-advertisement. It's who are you in the professional space? You could be, you know, someone who on your own free time has whatever hobbies you have. But what LinkedIn shows you is your best, like who you are in the professional space. So for me, I knew that I wanted to have all my accomplishments on there, my skills, my soft skills and things like that. So that way when I approached people, they said, wow, you know, I'm going to give this kid a chance. I'm going to talk to him for 20 minutes. I'm going to hear what he has to say. And that's what I recommend to people now. I think the most important thing people can do right now is get on LinkedIn, post about what experiences they have, and kind of sell themselves on it. Yeah. What that will allow you to do is get opportunities, have informational interviews, and get to network on that space. And that could turn into who knows what.
So the other thing I would add to that, right? You know, I'm a big user of LinkedIn, and we can talk about how I've used it throughout my career to really build my brand. Yeah. But I think in addition to building your own profile and networking, it also gives you a platform to have a point of view about pretty much any topic you want, and you can react to people. It's also a great opportunity for learning. I use this myself. So you will find many, many leaders in whatever space interests you. Yeah. For me, it's technology, sharing a lot of free thought leadership, education, best practices, their roads to success, certifications. Save all of that stuff and use it. When you get comfortable, then you can start doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
You can take articles that you found in different pieces that you read, go share them with your network. You would be surprised worldwide. You'll start to get followers who start to respect your point of view and the information that you're sharing out there.
Yeah, you're really building a brand. I mean, that's what it is. Like, you're creating an image of when people hear your name or see your face, you're creating a kind of an image in their head of who you are and who is Michelle Feinstein. If someone hears that name or sees that name anywhere on LinkedIn, it's now we associate her with her brand, with her profile, what she's posting, what she's talking about. I think for me, one thing that really worked that I recommend all students and young people do this if they're trying to get into a certain dream opportunity or a field of their choice is kind of get across as many people as possible. And I know it's kind of scary to cold message people, but I would come up with a small message saying, hi, for me, hi, I'm Darsh Patel. At the time, I was a University of Maryland student. I'm passionate about this, this, and this. I'm studying communication and business. I would love to take 15 minutes or 20 minutes of your time to get to know you better. Maybe if you send that to 100 people across whatever industry you're looking for, maybe 5 or 10 people, maybe even only one respond to you. But that one connection and one relationship that you're building could turn into a mentor, an opportunity, but also you're just learning from them. And I think learning that growth mindset is the most important thing you should have in this career development journey.
So I'll give you an example, right? When you approached me and now you were not my son's, friend or my neighbor, you approached me more in a capacity of learning. And that's when you said to me, hey, I want to understand, what does it mean to be in sales? So, I was able to really kind of open up and share a full playbook with you. And I think that's what you're really pointing out to the listeners is by having these conversations, you have no idea the free education, information, and additional contacts that individual is going to turn you on to.
Yeah, I think you can obviously you can learn so much from your own experience, but people who have been doing this for a lot longer than you, who have awesome experiences and all just knowledge in general, be able to get that information from someone is something you can't really get anywhere else. So, one thing I really wanted to ask you was, you have all these different hats that you wear. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a corporate killer, I'll say. You're doing so many, you're the corporate queen of technology, and you have all these amazing awards. So you're around all different kinds of people. You're even involved with that woman group where you really focus on empowering women to go do successful things in their career. You know, for me, one thing I wanted to ask you was, being around all these different people, what are some things that you've noticed people do successfully in terms of career development, getting to their next opportunity, figuring out what they're good at now, but what has worked for them, and what do you think there's some secrets that exist are in terms of mapping out your career and kind of figuring out that journey and building on that?
Yeah. I think taking it all the way back, right, into my 20s and 30s, one of the first things, and this was just how I was built, you always have to have goals. You have to have a way to have a vision and see yourself. Where do you want to be in 2 years? Where do you want to be in 4 years or 6 years? And then not just where do you want to be, but how are you going to get there?
Yeah.
So are there certain certifications in your line of work that you need to achieve to get to the next level? People. Start looking at the people that you are working with. Who do you admire? What is it about them that you admire? Is it the way they present? Is it the way that they are a leader? Is it their knowledge? Is it the way they speak? You want to surround yourself with people you can learn from, not people that you can't.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to take some things from them, not copying per se, but you're starting to take it and apply it in your own way. So I think that's number one. The second thing that I think helped me was over time, I started to build what's called my own personal board of directors.
Okay.
Now, these don't have to be just individuals that you work with. Your personal board of directors can be people in your life. They can be partners, clients, people you work with, your neighbors, your friends of friends, anyone that's going to be able to give you an honest opinion about you. And you can share with them what's happening in your life, what's happening at work. You can practice presentations in front of them, but they're going to give you real, honest feedback that you can react to. I think the third thing is investing in yourself and not getting too comfortable in any particular role. So, over my career, even though I stayed with my first company, Pershing, which is part of BNY Mellon, for 25 years, I was not in the same role. During that time, I probably had 15 different positions over a 25-year period at Pershing.
Wow.
But no one knocked on my door and said, Michelle, we have the next job for you. No, it was up to me internally to go find those next opportunities. And the way that's done is people have to work very closely with you, see you in action, see what you bring to the table, And then all of a sudden, when you knock on their door to say, I'm really interested in that job you just posted, they have working experience with you.
Yeah.
And there were a few times in there, I took some real big leaps and risks. You know, one example at BNY Mellon is they started a new company called iNautics.
Okay.
And it was really to do custom builds and custom work and leverage resources in India. They needed salespeople. At that time, I had never sold anything.
Wow.
I went over to that side of the company with no sales experience, and I learned how to sell over a course of 5 years. Lots of different things. That was a great risk. So I think risks are very important.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny when a couple of years ago, before I went to college, I actually went with you to your Pershing
You did.
building.
That's
and
right.
One thing you said really resonated with me. You said, if someone ever kind of requests for you to do a hard task, or let me rephrase that. If someone comes to you with a hard task and offers it to a group of people, you put your hand up and do whatever that task is.
Yes.
Because for one, I've implemented that into my corporate life forever and like my working experience. And it, for one, lets you learn from doing a lot of different hard things. You're kind of experiencing friction. And you know what they say in terms of, if you seek discomfort, that's when you grow the most.
That's right.
Because you're doing the hard things. You're learning, if you're lifting weights every day that are 2 pounds, when are you going to build muscle? It's when you push yourself to the limit and you really test yourself. That's when you grow. And I've been doing that for years now. And I recommend this to everyone else I know, whether it's you're in class, whether it's in an internship program. If someone who you look up to and that is really putting out this opportunity that may seem hard or that seems like a challenge, step up to the plate. Because if you do that, one, you're going to have a better relationship with that person who's offering it to you. You're going to get a great experience. And then more than that, it's going to look great on your personal reputation. And that's something I really want to harp on, that you recommended to me a long time ago, because it's done wonders for me. And I think that's great advice I want to share with everyone else.
I still apply it to myself, Darsh.
Yeah.
I could give you some examples this year where we had some unexpected departures at a very senior level, our head of product and in his second in command. That put a lot of additional responsibility and work on my manager. As I was observing that, I said to myself, I could take on more. Give me strategic partnerships.
Yeah.
Oh, I can take on more. Give me the insurance vertical. Do I know anything about insurance? Not yet, but I'm going to learn it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you look back at yourself after a 1-year time frame. Look at all you've learned, right? As a result of just saying yes instead of saying no. Yeah. So one thing I want to bring up, and having the benefit of being a mom, and also having access to my kids' friends, I've watched you all grow up, and one of the questions I often get is, when you graduate college, like, how do you know how to do that job? How do you know how to behave when you're at that job? And my answer is, you're going to learn through experience. There's no class that's going to teach it to you. And that's why it's so important to take internships. Yeah. Because you're going to learn skills on the fly that you never thought you'd need. So talk a little bit about that. When you first started your job at LinkedIn, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a great point. I think it was, I'll be real, it was the most exciting thing ever at the time. I was moving to a new city, Chicago, I've never been. But, there's that voice in the back of your head that's, can I do this? Am I able to step up to the plate? It says every time in my career I've taken that next step, I always try to take a step that looks bigger than I think I can handle. So this to me was maybe the most exciting time in my life, but also the scariest, because everything I've heard from talking to, mentors like yourself is that you're going to be humbled. You're going to learn things the hard way, but the key thing is you're going to learn. So for me, internships have really changed my entire career in terms of for the most positive way possible. I've had I have 3 or 4 internships, and then I have my job at LinkedIn, and every experience taught me different things. Yeah. And it all compounded. So my first internship was in sports marketing for my university's athletic department. And that taught me, working long hours with, sweating, doing not getting paid, but really leveraging the things that I'm learning. What am I learning in marketing? What am I learning from my managers? Things like that. And then for my next internship, it was sales. So how do I learn how to do the sales process? How do I learn how to use different online technology platforms? But I would say the thing that really stuck with me the most is those soft skills, is those intangible things that you learn, like how to talk with superiors, how to impress people on your team, how to work collaboratively on important tasks.
So how did you learn that?
By doing. By doing. That's the biggest thing. You can read about internships for 20 hours a day, but until you're in that space, doing the work, having tasks to do, you're not going to learn anything other than that.
Yeah. So I think fear of the unknown stops people, paralyzes people. And I think, especially for young folks that are entering the workforce, there has to be a way that you can work through that fear. Step out of your comfort zone, take on that new thing, and don't worry. Don't be afraid to fail. You might fail,
Yeah.
but you'll still have learned something. So it's an interesting thing. I call it changing your frame of mind or changing your frame, which is don't only look at the negative side of things, especially when it comes to failure. Try to look at the opportunity that's inside that failure. And what would have happened if you never took the opportunity at all?
Yeah.
You're going to stand in place. So I have a lot of connections that I've grown up with in the industry. And some of those connections have not changed their roles or their jobs in 20 years.
Wow.
And they'll come talk to me a lot and they'll want help. But then I'll come back to them in 6 months and they've still done nothing. And it's because it's a fear of losing stability, losing income, being good at something.
Yeah.
What if they're not good at something else? So let's talk about like your experience, Darsh. So how did you make the transition from LinkedIn to Growth Street?
Yeah, so it was definitely a unique journey. So for one, I want to harp on something you say before I go into that is failure. That word is something that a lot of people have a hard time with. And I think, students now and people who have recently graduated or in this young adult space, they're experiencing it for the first time. And it can be a really humbling experience. So for me at LinkedIn, going into LinkedIn, I was very confident in my abilities. For me, in my internship for Bloomberg Industry Group, the summer of my senior year, I had the most signups, the most calls, the most meetings booked. I thought I was a rock star. I felt so good about my abilities, speaking to people, being on the phones, cold calling, and all of these things. And then before that, I had another sales internship as well. When I went to LinkedIn, I thought, I'm gonna be the best. I'm not gonna have problems. I'm going to be able to get the most meetings, sell the most, and do all these things. And I was wrong. Like in full transparency, I was wrong. I realized that, now that I'm in a new pond, I'm not the big fish in the small pond. I'm like everyone else. And it was a great humbling experience because my first quarter, I hit, but my second quarter, the first month or two, I was having the hardest time building systems. Why is no one booking meetings with me? And it was a struggle. Me and my manager had some hard conversations. My manager and I had an interesting relationship. He was like a coach. I played sports, I played football, basketball, all of these sports, volleyball. And he was like the coach that really gets on you. And I want to thank him so much because he taught me how to fight through these hard times, fight through these failures. And although, in my head at the time, I was like, why is he so hard on me? Why, making this failure even worse?
Like his feedback kind of hurt.
Yeah. But I was like, you know what? This is actually like making me stronger, making me better, teaching me real lessons like that no one else maybe might have the balls to tell me.
Yeah.
And handling that failure, I think, was something that I had to learn for the first time. But I think it's so important because you cannot really move forward and get better until you acknowledge why did I fail, what's going on, and how can I move forward.
Yeah, no, you learned a tremendously valuable lesson very early on in your life.
Learn the hard way.
And the great news was it didn't cripple you.
Yeah.
You decided to turn it into something amazing, which is the stage we're sitting on right here. And this company that you've started, Growth Street, inspiration.
Thank you.
Right? It's inspiration.
Yeah, it is. And for me, I always knew that I wanted to help people. I love people. I love talking. Right now, how we're talking right here. For me, when I was, the reason I got into sales in the first place was because I did marketing beforehand. I like to be creative. I like to work in sports. But I realized that I don't want to be behind the stage. I want to be on the stage. I want to be talking to people. I want to be building relationships. And that's why I started working in sales. So I worked in sales. You're talking to people every day, nonstop, cold calling. You're going to have good experiences, as you know, some bad experiences. But being around people was my most important thing at the time. I wanted to just talk. That was my thing, talk and learn. And the reason I got into Growth Street, the whole idea here was I helped so many people in the past 2 years for fun in terms of their own career development. But, some people are really good at school, but don't necessarily have the interviewing skills. Some people are like me where you have the social elements down, but you don't know how to market your experience. For me, I was fortunate enough to navigate and figure out how to get to where you want to be through whatever strengths that you have and whatever weaknesses you might have. And that gave me this idea. And kind of going through the whole LinkedIn experience was great because I got to learn how companies operate, how companies work, how my manager managed people. And it was a rotational program. So I was around a lot of different people at a lot of different times. And I was just inspired. I was saying, you know what? I love helping people. I want to do this in a way where I can make a greater impact. And I know that I can be of real value. So time passed by. I said, I've been working on this for over a year now. let's start this thing. Let's help people get to where they want to be through their methods of learning.
So in the audience,
Yeah.
I listened to this podcast.
Okay.
I now come to your website.
Yeah.
What am I going to learn at Growth Street? What's in it for me?
So go to growthstreethub.com. That's the website. And the whole thing that I'm trying to really talk about in regards to the theme here in terms of like getting to where you want to be is, you know, everyone learns differently. You ask them, I've asked over 200 students now. I did a survey about why are you not getting to where you want to be, whether that's in school, your personal life, or your work life. They all say the same thing. I'm not getting taught the way I learn the best, right? So when you're a student, you want to hear, you know, your grandparents or your older parents give you career advice. You're like, oh, they don't get it. They don't understand me. You don't have the necessarily career resources at your colleges. So, but who did you look up to? For me, in my experience in the university, it was people who were just a couple steps ahead of me. Who was where I was 2 or 3 years ago, and how are they successful now? Those are the people I was like, wow, their voice resonates. So for me, it was 1, becoming a relatable voice, and then 2, teaching people what they want to learn the way that they best learn. So on Growth Street, let's say you're a visual learner or an audio learner. You have things like this, the podcast, you have YouTube videos. Do you like to read things? Are you a reader? We have a newsletter. We have blogs and guides. And then are you someone who, like me, who kind of grew up playing sports, you like to be coached? Do you like that one-on-one personal time where you can be taught things and have a guided thought session? That's what we have in coaching. So for me, the whole biggest thing is like, I realized at a pretty young age that I learned a specific way. My brother learns the best through classes. Danny, other people that we know in our circle, they learn through experience, through hands-on activity, right? So for me, it's creating curated, personalized learning in terms of career development. So people don't have that gatekeeping basically from their dreams.
Right. So they're not alone. You're building a community.
Yeah. And I'm here. We say we're your partners in progress. So that's the whole idea. So kind of, one thing that, I was curious about was going back to this whole thing, I have advice to give for people because I've been in their shoes, right? So now I'm going to kind of play this, imaginary scenario for you here. So, people always say, if I knew what I knew now and I could start life again in 2005, I would invest in Apple. I would release all of, Drake's most popular songs and take over the world in that way, right? In the space of career development, knowing how the trends have worked now, knowing the power of LinkedIn, things like that, if you could, if you were a 20-year-old right now in today's society, you were in college, you were a freshman, sophomore, maybe you just graduated, knowing what you know now about how everything works, what would you do today to really jumpstart your career and kind of go down that avenue?
So when I was in college, one of the things that I did was they had a broadcast station where you could try out different careers, right? And I was really passionate about one day becoming a broadcast news anchor. Now, I'm not going to tell you when I graduated college, but let's just say it was a few decades ago.
Okay.
But I didn't have LinkedIn. We didn't have the internet. I mean, you would find jobs through newspapers. And so it kind of was intimidating for me to think about going into New York City and trying to become a broadcaster. And to be honest with you, if I couldn't be on Channel 4 News in New York at the beginning, I was like, I'm not going out to the Midwest in some podunk, place and starting from that. So I think number one is I definitely would have checked my ego. If I had access to the tools I had today, I think I would have stayed on that career path for sure. I would have built my brand. I would have used LinkedIn. I would have gotten internships over at NBC. I would have moved to New York City for sure.
Okay.
So those would be things that I think that I would have prioritized. What I did was a little bit different, right? So I decided to try out different careers in technology. And in some ways, it did give me a similar experience to being a broadcaster.
Yeah.
So a little bit of my journey was when I got my sea legs and I was like, wow, I think I kind of like this. At that time, the internet was just becoming a big thing. Online trading was becoming a big thing. And so the company that Pershing spun off was called PC Financial Network. It was one of the first online discount brokers, right? So I became someone that was a customer service agent on the phone. 5 years later, I was managing their trading desk. I was managing different people. And then I just kept going in financial services, taking more certifications. At some point in my 7th year, I started doing speaking events. And like you, I'm like, I'm pretty good at this. Actually, I would get a pump from speaking in front of large audiences.
Yeah.
And for the next 20 years of my career, I was put on really large stages in major financial services, conferences and events, like speaking at the Waldorf Astoria. The more I did it, the better I got. So that was my example of, it may not have been on NBC News, it was on a different stage, but I was applying similar skills.
Yeah. So I guess, for one, that's great input. I think everyone should realize that like they have so many resources now. I think that's a big takeaway is that, way back when the internet wasn't even a thing.
There's nothing.
Yeah, no internet, no way to, brand yourself online.
Right.
So I guess in 3 to 4 steps, if you were, kind of giving career advice right now in 4 steps, let's say you're a college student, maybe you're not in college, you're trying to start your career.
Yeah.
4 things you can do in the next, let's say 2 months, starting on day 0 that can get you on that right path.
Okay. Well, number 1 is definitely build a LinkedIn profile. Take a look at other LinkedIn profiles of people you know, students you know, friends. Take the best from their profiles to build your own. It's really important because it is the first place employers are going to look to figure out, do they want someone like you on their team? And your picture matters. The way you dress in that picture matters. The description about you matters. I think the second thing is find ways to add things to your profile that show that you're putting your time into committing yourself to your career of choice or passions.
Yeah.
So those internships are important and you need to post them on your LinkedIn profile. Companies like Salesforce and IBM and Amazon and other companies, they offer free training. If you find their websites, go on those websites and start taking certifications. Post them on your LinkedIn. These employers want to see that you're not just wasting your time, I hate to say it, hanging with your friends, playing video games. Like, that's okay for a percentage of your time. But right now, you're on an uphill climb to define your career path and to prove yourself to folks. I think the second is when you're looking at job opportunities, go broad. So let's say you want to get into sports management, but you have no experience, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you could look at some of the obvious big companies, but you might also want to look at some of the smaller startups or companies that are associated somehow to sports management to just get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. One of my own kids graduated from college a couple of years ago, never did internships, regretted it later. But he started to apply to entry-level jobs for companies like Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan and other places, and they were looking for these roles described as analysts. Well, analyst is really, it's a role which puts college students that have graduated through a rotational program where both the company and the student can figure out, what are they good at?
Yeah.
Are they good at sales? Are they good at relationship management? Should they be in operations, right? Should they be in product management? Those are the best roles. If you can apply to anything that says analyst, go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I couldn't agree with you more. I think, for one, getting started, build that LinkedIn profile, figure out what that is, and then I think when you look at your own profile, more than anything else, you know what it's missing, right? For me, if I had to pick like 3 or 4 things that people can do right now, it's build a LinkedIn profile, make your resume, and then the second thing I would do. Actually, let me kind of restart there for a second. If I had to give 4 steps in terms of starting out in your career to figuring out or taking that next big leap in terms of getting your career started, these are the 4 things that I would do. For one, build that resume, build that LinkedIn, and create that. Utilize what things you've done, what experiences you have. Even if you were, let's say you worked at McDonald's, which is okay, or you were a garbage man, right? You can market yourself in a great way. You could say, I'm a waste management operational specialist instead of saying garbage man.
Be creative.
Exactly. If you're, a cashier at McDonald's, say financial manager specialist or operational analyst, something along those lines where we all do things, right, where we don't know if it's good enough. We don't know if it's marketable. We don't know if people want to see it, but we know how people think. So if we're able to, make a resume by talking about, for me, my first job was Chick-fil-A, right? So I could write cashier. I could write, chef or whatever I could put in there. But for me, I want to market it in a way where it looks and applies to roles that I'm applying for. So I wrote customer experience specialist, right? So now I have experience, working with clients, having one-on-one communication, and helping the company generate revenue. That's how I could rebrand myself.
Well, I'll give you another example.
Yeah.
And I hear this a lot because I interview at Salesforce various people. People are getting very creative. So it's going way beyond LinkedIn now. And even on LinkedIn, what they're pointing you to is saying, if you really want to sell yourself, start creating videos that bring your personality to life, where you're describing your personal value proposition on a video. Yeah. It's not your resume, it's not your LinkedIn profile, but it's something that brings you to life for that potential employer. And these videos could be short clips because promoting yourself and your talents on things like TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram is very real.
Yeah, and I think this online presence is a big thing. Beforehand, if you applied to a job, let's say the company really had no way of figuring out who you were and taking a deeper look into your life. Right now, you look up someone's name, you can see really whatever pops up, whether that's
Right.
on Instagram, TikTok, social media, things like that. So leveraging all the resources that we have and building this positive, it goes back to the same thing, right? Reputation and imagery.
Well, I'll give you another example too.
Yeah.
The power of a platform like a LinkedIn. About 10 years ago, I had not really used it that much. But when I started to build my brand, at the same time, I was already about, 15, 18 years in at Pershing. I was
Yeah.
getting kind of antsy. I was thinking I want to start looking outside for my next potential opportunity. People inside Pershing knew a lot about me, knew my reputation,
Yeah.
knew my work ethic. But people outside really didn't know me, right? And I'm like, this is a problem. So I started using LinkedIn to build my brand,
Yeah.
to build my voice, to build my network of connections. It was one of the most powerful thing I did. And it took about 5 to 7 years to really build myself. And so what does it mean to build your brand? It's not just your profile and your picture, but it's also about doing things like this.
Yeah.
Finding a way to become a voice on a podcast. Now people can listen to you.
Yeah.
Writing an article on a particular topic. Let's say right now for young people, it's like, what's your opinion? What's been the impact of things like GPT and AI on your life? Write something, post it, or react to somebody else that's posting it. I kept doing more and more of this. I would touch it every single week, posting something, sharing something, commenting on something. The more podcasts I did or webcasts I did, it would lead me to other people that would say, we'd like to get you on this channel speaking.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll add to this is don't just focus on the career that you want. Even as young people, it's about what other communities can I join that are going to be meaningful, have an impact, and give me an opportunity to show leadership. So, there could be something happening in your community. It could be something within the line of work that you're interested in. But if there is an outside club or community or organization, join it. Example, my mom passed away from breast cancer. Prior to her going through that journey, I never really dedicated my time to any particular charity. After going through that journey and how it touched our lives, I then became very, very involved with some of the breast cancer organizations. I did a walk for 25 plus miles.
Yeah.
I raised $10,000. It felt great. Some of my kids participated in that. That's what I'm talking about. Find some other organization. It's a way to demonstrate work ethic, commitment, all of that. Resilience.
And for one, I know you're involved in a lot of other groups right now. For example, you're in this the group. The name is
Chief.
Yeah, so Chief is a women's organization.
That's right.
And for one, I think I was reading some of your posts about it. It's incredible the kind of stuff that you're doing. And one thing that I've tried to instill in myself from a young age was, no matter what your circumstances are, or whatever box people put you in, those are not barriers for you to get to where you want to be. You can use them as motivators, inspiration, and things like that. So for me, I made a LinkedIn post. I had almost 200,000 interactions. And what I wrote about was, how I was a student during the coronavirus. And it was, my whole world really, and my whole college experience turned upside down. I wrote how I was, a first generation American and, my parents being from India and Africa. So these things I looked at as, they're not excuses. Like, no, they're not things that held me back, but I wore them as badges of honor and motivators for me to get to where I wanted to be. So I would love to hear more about what you think in terms of, people's challenges that they have regarding, maybe demographical things, maybe, personal history backgrounds, and just people, getting to where they want to be regardless of circumstances they're in.
So let me take it back to Chief. Why did I become part of Chief a few years ago, right? With the network that I already have. Well, what was bugging me was through the past 2 decades of my life, I didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of additional external activities, right? I was raising my kids, working full time, traveling. And I felt it was really important for me to start to meet, especially other female leaders that I could learn from that were not in my industry. And so Chief presents that opportunity because you have women from all around the world, from all different industries joining Chief, from Gen Z all the way up to baby boomers. And it was the women that were kind of at my level or above that were most interesting to me. What's unique about Chief is when you join, they will put you into a dedicated, what they call core group.
Okay.
And your core group will meet 2 hours once a month for a year. And they're pulling women kind of within your age group from different industries and sometimes the same industry together. And it was great because we were talking about things on those 2-hour meetings like hitting the glass ceiling, not being able to get to the next leadership level, ageism. A lot of us were 50 and over. What do we do with that? The fear of leaving our jobs because of the age that we were at. Would we ever get hired again making the money we're making today or even more or not? Like those are some of the topics we would talk about. And so it was wonderful to have this outside group to be able to really just share anything you wanted to, from becoming an empty nester because your kids are growing up and going on with their lives, to downsizing your home and living a bit smaller, to going through some real world challenges at work. So I think for me, Chief was an investment. The other thing they do is they bring in a lot of luminaries. So these are they could be movie stars. They could be like Michelle Obama spoke at Chief.
Wow.
And they give you access to interact with these women in a virtual setting as well as an in-person setting. The last point on Chief I'll say is they are a community. So if you go to New York City, Chief has a building that only members can get into. When you go in there, it's beautifully set up. They have a bar, you can host events, you can rent it out. So it just gives you a place in cities all over the world to find other women in Chief and network with them.
Yeah, and for one, I mean, that sounds like an amazing organization.
It is.
I think for me, organizations change your entire, like everything for me. For me, you know, when I went to university, my first semester, you know, I'm from New Jersey. I went to school in Maryland. My first time leaving home, you know, I've had the ability to grow up in the same house for 18 or whatever years. So when I got to Maryland, my first semester, you know, as a college freshman, I was lost. I had a hard time. You know, I'm a social person, as I'm sure you know. But I had a hard time making really, you know, core friendships. I couldn't find myself on campus. What changed I think my life, honestly, was joining Phi Chi Theta, a professional business fraternity. You know, it made the world smaller. It put me around a community, which I think is the most important thing, of people who are just like me, who have the same mindset or are trying to grow. I think the number one advice that I can give to students who are especially in universities and trying to find themselves and where they are is find a community, find an organization where there's people like you, but also people that you want to be like. Because as you were saying earlier is you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. That there's no benefit for you because everyone, of course, is learning from you, but are you capping yourself? So when I went to this fraternity, you know, it was a business fraternity. So it's all people who have a focus on business majors, you know, corporate excellence and things like that. And I was just a wide-eyed, bushy-tailed sophomore who was just trying to, you know, fit in and learn. And I joined that organization. And because of that, I had referrals to all these top companies like Google, Microsoft, LinkedIn. And I got to do cool internships for DC United, University of Maryland, just because I had this circle. So my biggest thing is join a circle, find your tribe, and make sure that in that experience, one, you're giving because these cultures that, you know, work cultures or community cultures that you really give a lot into, they oftentimes, the universe will give things back to you. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, hearing how you're involved in Chiefs is a great thing because I'm sure for all the work that you've done there, you know, Chiefs giving back to you. And for me, what I've done with Phi Chi Theta and all my other student organizations was I put in a lot of my time. I was the president of our pledge class. I was a sports chair. I was the professionalism chair doing workshops. And what that did for me is by the time I was leaving, I had so much more experience. I had a group of people that believed in me, taught me so many things, but also I had a network of all past members and alumni across the United States that helped me get into my job at LinkedIn, for example, and all the other programs that I was a part of.
But it also gives you something to talk about. So when you're getting interviewed and they say, tell me about an experience where you went through a really challenging time, how did you rise to the occasion and overcome that challenge? Being a college student or just graduating, you're not going to have that many stories. Yeah. So challenging yourself and giving your time, that's going to present you challenges that you never would have faced before, and you'll have a story to tell.
Seriously, I think when you're in these experiences and you're putting yourself, again, organizations or roles or programs, whatever it is, building, again, that brand, it comes back to the same thing. Wherever you want to get to next, you have to do something first.
And listen, things don't go as planned. There is no perfect playbook for life, for your career. There's no such thing. So you have to be prepared for the unexpected to happen. You have to expect it to happen and know that, okay, I'm going to have to rise to this occasion. So as an example, there was a point in my life where I was working towards a promotion. doing everything I possibly could, saying yes to everything, going everywhere. Years went by. I'm watching some of my peers get promoted ahead of me. Finally, this one year, my manager says, this is your year. We're going to put you up for managing director. I'm like, really? Are you serious? Does your boss know that? Yes, everybody's on board. So when you're put up for managing director, you have to go through a process of getting sponsors. You have to write up a whole proposal about you and why you're ready now and give a lot of detail. I went through that process. In the end of the day, there was a last minute change, an unexpected change, and
Wow.
they did not put me up for managing director. I can't tell you the level of disappointment I felt, right? Tremendous disappointment. It was a huge setback. For me, it was a catalyst because I had been sitting on this decision of should I now make a major career move or just sit and wait and hope that I get promoted next year.
Yeah.
I decided not to wait. That was my catalyst. That was the switch that got flipped. And I said, now I'm going to make it my full-time job to find my next career. And I did that. And so I tell that story because everyone listening is going to face that time in their life.
Yeah.
It could be a personal situation or a career situation, but your switch has to get flipped on. And until it does, you're not going to move forward.
Yeah. And, for me, that was the massive layoffs that happened at LinkedIn.
Yes.
I was on a plane back from Portland after my flight got canceled when I was there. And I was already having the worst flight experience you can imagine. And I get off the plane and I see an email from my manager. And he says, I'm sorry, guys. And he explains what happened. And it was almost everyone in my cohort, my entire, the entire LinkedIn kind of atmosphere and ecosystem that I was around me. And I was like, wow.
You were in complete shock.
I was in shock. I didn't know how to react. Some people react, they're sad. Some people are confused. Some people are happy. I was just kind of shocked. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't, having a huge emotional reaction immediately, but it was more of a, wow, this just happened. What do I do?
Yeah.
And that was my catalyst to really think about what do I want to do? Where do I want to do it? How did I feel about my experience? Because a lot of times, they say B plus, A minus things in your life, like commitments. It's easy to stay with those things forever. And they're like the best kind of compromises, right? Like for me, LinkedIn is an amazing company to work for. I could not say for one, I got to work for the company that changed my life. And not many people get to say that. Mm-hmm. And from the benefits they have from, their amazing food to their amazing network and other employees and cohorts and things like that, I thought I was living the corporate dream. I loved it. And I had hard times. And I really, sometimes I was doubting if this was for me or not. But I know I would never have been able to step away and do something like this if I didn't have that catalyst moment, which were those layoffs.
That's right.
So something I'm curious about with you is, when you go through these moments, I'm sure a lot of people with us, whether it's getting rejected from their internship offer, getting fired from their company, going through layoffs, we all have different catalysts. We all have these different hard times. How would you recommend people handle these moments and turn what seems maybe something like rock bottom or the worst news possible into the next step of an awesome career journey ahead of them?
Yeah. So thinking back on my own experience and observing others that have gone through it, number one, if something like that happens to you, you have to take some time. Give yourself the gift of a few weeks to just settle yourself, settle your brain. Do nothing. Watch TV, hang out, be with family. You need to do that so that you don't have an impulsive reaction and jump into something else that really isn't the right thing. So number one is take time. Once you've settled a little bit, you start writing down people you respect, people you know, people that you think are going to be helpful to you, and you just start setting up appointments. You just want to start talking to people.
Yeah.
I'm about to start my next chapter. This is what I'm going through. They may ask you the hardest question, which is, what do you want to do, Darsh?
Yeah.
It's a very hard question to answer, especially if you've gone through a layoff. Or as an example, even this kind of stress can happen to college students who are graduating but don't know what they want to be. They just went through 4 years of college. They did not land a job upon graduation, which many don't. It's okay.
Yeah.
But now what? School is over, right? It can be very, very scary. So it's take the time, make the list, start talking to people, start looking into learning, right? There's a great book out there that I just stumbled across called The Pivot Year. And the pivot year is really teaching yourself how to get out of a negative mindset, that's also really important. If you're going to go through a layoff, you've got to really force yourself to leave that negative mindset. Now it's all about opportunity. You have the opportunity to go do whatever you want. Go try a few things.
Yeah.
And you may have to try a few things before something sticks, right? Let's talk about how long it's taken you to stand up Growth Street.
Seriously.
Did it happen in 2 weeks?
No, it took a lot longer than that.
Right.
I've been working on this for almost a year and a half now.
And how did you even know how to do it?
Trial and error. You got to just do. It goes back to the thing, just do. Just
and
do
research.
It. Yeah.
That's right.
It takes a lot of
Yeah.
time, I would say, and thought to do these things.
Like I have a lot of folks that will call me who want career advice. They don't know how to move from where they are to where they want to get to. How do they get unstuck? How do they even start? Where do they start? Right? And so I give them very similar advice. Write your value proposition. Know your why. Know who you are. What do you bring to the table? Think back to all the experiences. Like if you're a working individual, where did you contribute value? Where did you save the company money? Talk about a project that you led. You don't want to just recall those things on the fly. Write them down. So if you actually get the opportunity to get an interview, you're prepared. So you said you remembered something that I said to you. And I'll tell you, one of the phrases that stuck with me my whole life was, if you fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And I have applied that to everything. Every presentation, every opportunity, anything I'm working on, you have to do the prep. So don't be lazy. Don't do it halfway. You know, to your point, different people learn and consume information differently. For me, read it, write it, say it over and over and over. Read it, write it, say it. And then you're just going to have a conversation like we're doing now.
I think, as you were saying, like you have control over your destiny. And like a lot of that is goal setting, manifesting, and like writing your own story the way you want to do it. You know, one thing that I've done before, I saw this a while back on one of the social media platforms, was if you close your eyes right now and you envision your best self walking out of thin air, let's say you look to the side right here. I'm looking over here to the side, nothing over here. And you can join me. Look over here. Your best version of yourself right now walking out of that door. What does that person look like? What are they doing? And like, who is that? Who is Michelle? Who is Darsh? Who is that?
Right.
And I use that person to help guide my day-to-day, my week-to-week, and for me to where I want to go.
So you're hitting on an interesting point, which we probably should talk about, and that's feedback.
Yeah.
So as a young person entering the workforce, you don't want to just wait for your annual review to get feedback. Ask for feedback all the time. Your boss just gave you the opportunity to present in front of all the VPs on a platform that you're using. Don't just walk away. Ask for feedback. Ask your boss for feedback. Ask people that were in the audience, because then they're going to tell you, well, you spoke a little too fast, or you skipped over this piece of information, or I would have delivered this with a little bit more, power or less power. So some people shrink from feedback. It makes them feel bad. No, you need to learn from that. Write it down. So getting to your best version of yourself, how do you even know what that is? Yeah. You have to know from the observations of others.
I agree. I think all of us in our minds know kind of who we want to be and like what that person looks like, but we don't know. We have only our perspective of getting there.
Here's an example. In my younger years, starting my career, I was working at a different company. I was over at Payne Weber. Like you, I was very proud. I thought I was doing great. And I remember I love talking. And so in meetings with various people in the room, I was usually one of the first people to speak, and I probably would speak the longest. But here was the lesson learned. So in one of my reviews, my manager at the time said, Michelle, you're doing great, but it would be nice when we get in meetings if you would take a pause and let other people have a chance to voice their opinions and don't speak over them. Listen more, speak less. Yeah. I walked out of that room highly insulted. But later I realized that they were telling me something really important about how I was coming across. And I was coming across as too aggressive, right? And maybe upsetting some of my coworkers. So that was a valuable piece of feedback that I have been cognizant of my whole life. And I've had to teach myself, because I can get very excited when I talk, to hold back a little bit.
I'm the same way. As I'm sure you know, my dad tells me all the time, Darsh, you speak too fast. So, and for me, I'm someone who, my brain thinks of things to say so quickly. I have so much I want to share that oftentimes, you know, you can speak too fast, you can stutter over your words and really not get your clear thought across. And I agree with you. I think feedback's the most important thing. The people in your life or that you kind of come across, you are not the same person to them as you are to someone else. Like your image of me is completely different than how someone else, like maybe someone I work with sees me, right? And everyone has a unique perspective on your interaction and your relationship with them. So it's figuring out from them how you can, you know, be better, not even be better necessarily, but what about what you're doing, like I guess they're more the constructive criticism and their thoughts of you.
Yeah.
You can turn that into strengths. Like for me, whenever you have a coach, right, growing up, a coach or a manager, things like that, even a parent, you know, they'll tell you, oh, your resume is terrible, or oh, you smell bad, or all these things. You could either be upset and still smell bad, or, you know, having the same resume, or you can, next time you go to the store, you get some deodorant, you get some cologne, or you go to your computer and you change your resume. Yeah. Like it's how you handle different moments and different decisions. Like what I say is you sign you have like a signature, right? You sign your name next to every action you take, right? So almost everything's a crossroad.
You're making me think of something while you're speaking. So there's a great book. I think it's really important that folks know themselves. You think you know yourself, right? Yeah. There's a book called Strengths Finder 2.0.
Okay.
And in the book, there's a test that you can take online, and it takes 15 or 20 minutes. And the questions are just very random, but at the end, it gives you a whole profile on you. Strengths Finder 2.0. And so I've taken this test once every 5 years for the course of my career. And every single time, it pretty much comes out relatively the same. But what it tells me about me is, number one, recognition is really important to me. So it talks about what your motivators are, what motivates you, what drives you. It even talks about careers that you would be a good fit for versus not, based on your personality traits, based on what drives and motivates you. And I think that's really important. And, you know, 1 year I bought the book for people on my team because I said, it's important to know yourself, but it's also important for you to know who you're working with, what drives them, what communication style they have, how they like to be spoken to, how they like to work. And what we figured out is we had a mixed bag of analytics, outgoing, driven individuals. And so when you match an analytic to an outgoing, driven individual, they are opposites. Yeah. Right. And so, you know, as an individual in the work world, it's very important for you to pay attention to who are you working amongst, and that your style could rub them the wrong way. So you have to adapt your style.
Yeah. I think it's all like team. It's like team chemistry, right?
That's
it's like the same way two people who are the same, they'll bond over certain things, but they'll also clash heads over the same things. But let's say, you know, person A and person B can be complete opposites,
and they can complement.
And they can complement each other perfectly, but also while disagreeing over different things. That's I think it's all about how you can mesh with each other. So one thing that I wanted to also talk about is kind of like one of the last things we talk about here while we're here today is going back to the original idea of getting to the same place or getting to your dream or whatever that next step is for you, and embracing your own personal path. So when I think of this, for me, I really resonate with this idea because going back to the beginning is most students, you know, they're told the traditional pathway is to go be a 4.0 student, internship, job, summa cum laude, be top of your class, and interview, you'll get a job. For me, my way of getting there was network, get experience, don't care if it's unpaid, just find a way in and leverage your relationships. So I would love to hear from you how, you know, two people can be in completely different walks of life or different situations, or even maybe how this is kind of for yourself being a part of, you know, these different teams in your life, how people can embrace their uniqueness and their strengths to get to where they want to be without having this idea of I have to compare myself to others, because thinking that you're all on the same timeline can be damaging and could stress yourself out and all of these things. So kind of to, you know, rephrase the question is, how can people embrace their uniqueness and their personal strengths in their own journey to get to where they want to be? Yeah,
it's a great topic. I think number one, every individual, I think we kind of know what we're good at and what we're not good at, right? Yeah. Are we good at math? Are we good at English? Are we public speakers? Are we terrified of speaking? Are we artistic? Are we not? I'll give you an example amongst my own two sons. Yeah. You know, one took a path that sounds more traditional, did the internships, landed the job after school, but he did end up going into a career that does leverage his strengths. So he always had an engineering mindset. And honestly, the tougher the environment, it motivates him.
Yeah.
My other son is taking a different path. So still in school, doing great, all that, but he was always an artist. Art was his passion. But for a while, he felt like, no, I need to follow that other path and go into finance. Finance is opposite his personality. Now he's finding his way into a more artistic part, a major for his career, glowing, thriving, right? He feels great about it. And so I think if art drives you, you got to find your passion, whatever it may be, and latch on. For me, it was public speaking. Always public speaking. Now, did I have any idea that public speaking could lead me to success? I didn't at the time when I was younger. But the more I did it, what I found is so many people fear public speaking that if you can know a subject, be an expert, and then be able to translate complex scenarios, especially in the world of technology concepts, and be able to tell it in a storytelling type of way, for me, that was my recipe to success. Now, you said, hey, is there a traditional path? For me, I didn't take a traditional path, right? I graduated school, became a secretary, went into an industry I had no experience in. All my jobs I took after that, I didn't have any experience in them. So when I left Pershing the first time, I went into a role for conversion account management, knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
Did it for 3 years. Came back to Pershing for product management, knew nothing about it, did it for 10 years. Went to iNautics to do sales, knew nothing about it. So going and stepping into these things where you don't have a playbook and you have no experience sometimes is the path.
Yeah.
That's where you do the best learning.
I agree. I think, for one, that's incredible insight. I think everyone, again, I want to emphasize this greatly because I think people, again, it's easy when you're younger and you're trying to go achieve great things to get caught up in the cycle of this is what they're doing, I have to do it that way. That is not the case at all.
That's right.
You are your own person. Follow your own path.
And I want to say this, being a mom, I'm going to put my mom hat on.
Put the mom hat on. Let's hear it.
College, you don't go to college to get a job. You go to college to grow from a child to an adult. Yeah. College is a journey. It's about self-discovery. It's about learning. It's about changing your mind. So I see a lot of college students struggle. They're like, oh, I feel bad. I changed my major so many times. That's the point.
Yep.
That is the place to do it. Go try on different careers and decide, nope, don't like that. Nope, that's not for me. Even if you graduate, you still accomplished the goal, which was you grew, you stretched, you learned, you tried some things. Now you're in the real world and you're a different person than you were at 17 years old.
So different.
That is the point of college.
I think, wow, Michelle, I think you nailed it. I don't think I've ever heard a better description of college than just now, because I couldn't agree with you more. If you like the person I left home to go to school with as an 18-year-old,
that's it,
to who I am when I graduated, completely different people.
That's right.
And I didn't go there. You're right. When I was, when I was going through all of this, never was I thinking the point of this is to get a job. You may think that while you're struggling, you're trying to get a job or internship, but that's not the main mindset. It's when I left, the most powerful things that college left me with was the lessons I've learned, the people I've met, and the experiences within the experience.
Yeah. And nothing's permanent. And you've just learned that. No situation is permanent. The school that you choose, the first job that you get, or even the second job, they are all stepping stones leading you to the next experience on your life journey.
Yeah. And going back to the word of the day, which I'll say is paths and journeys, is that you can focus on your destination, yes, and that'll help you get to where you want to go. But enjoying and recognizing and reflecting on the journey that you're on right now is the most powerful thing you can do. Because for me, and I think for you as well, I'm sure for everyone else, it's so easy to get caught up in I'm doing this to go do that, right? I'm taking this class so I can take the next class. I'm doing this internship so I can get a job at that company. But if you're really in tune with what you're doing right now, one, you will learn more, you'll have a better experience, and you will see how I think that can make a greater impact, not just in terms of like what you can do with it, but like the lessons that the influence that you're getting.
And I think changing is overwhelming. I've observed this, right? Changing is overwhelming for people. So you may have a big goal. I want to make $100,000 a year by the time I'm 25 years old. Great. That's a great goal. But you can take small steps to get there. The first thing I'm going to do is take a course in X. The second thing I'm going to do is say yes to this job that scares me. The third thing I'm going to do is network with Darsh Patel and subscribe to Growth Street. I'm giving you
Yeah.
examples, but they're small steps that build
Yeah.
to get you to that place.
And again, I think it comes down to planning. So like creating, even if it's a 1 year roadmap, a
That's
5 year
it.
roadmap.
Don't even make it longer than
Yeah,
that.
a 1 year roadmap. What can I do from now for 1 year later? Well, you know what? That's why we have New Year's resolutions. You know, speaking about the new year,
Yes.
it's how can we plan a certain small amount of time so that when you're done, you feel better about yourself and where you're going.
And write it down.
Yeah.
It's January 1st
Read
tomorrow.
it, write it, say it.
Read it, write it, say it. Where are you today? April. What have you done since January? July. You will be surprised a year later of all the things that you said yes to and different things that you did. You're not the same person you were at the beginning of the year.
Definitely. Well, I think that's a great way to kind of, segue us to the end of, I could talk to you for hours, Michelle. You have so many great things to say, and I'm sure everyone at home is, really enjoying the nuggets of wisdom. I mean, I've known you for a really long time, and I feel like I'm learning so much right now just sitting and talking to you. So one, I really appreciate it. But, I think, again, the main reason why we're here is to really focus on just the daily experiences that we're having, the yearly experience, and just embracing the present. The past is done. We learn from it. We're growing from it. The future will come. But being able to control your controllables and reflect and be self-aware, that's going to help you, embrace your uniqueness, embrace your chaos, and get to where you want to go. So yeah, I mean, that's the lessons that I have. One thing I really want to kind of go from here is, you're going to hear me say this a lot. I really want to thank you for being here. So I'm going to probably thank you 5 more times before you go. But yeah, I mean, I would love to hear any last thoughts that you have regarding this topic. I know it's a really powerful one. And I hope that everyone at home can really, resonate with your unique journey from going to all these different crazy career topics. So if you could start again what you would do, from my advice as well. So what are some final thoughts you have on this topic? If you were on the receiving end of this, if you were a student, if you were a young career, what kind of advice or final thoughts do you think would really resonate with you?
Final thoughts. 1, make some goals. They don't have to be huge goals, but make some goals and write them down. 1 year, 2 year, 5 years out.
Yeah.
2nd, self-love. If you don't love yourself, no one else is going to love you. So it's going to help you have a positive mindset and present yourself with positive energy. So self-love is really important. 3, always learn. Make it a point every week, read, do research online, meet new people, but be a constant learner and have a growth mindset. Definitely.
Well, on that note, before we go, again, I'm going to say thank you. So thank you, Michelle. But do you have anything coming up for yourself, things that you want to shout out, anything that the watchers can do to interact with you? I would love to, this is your time to put that shameless plug.
So I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to spend one-on-one time with folks. I share a lot of thought leadership. I do a lot of other podcasts on lots of different topics. So I'd say reach out. Yeah, guys, go follow Michelle on LinkedIn. Go see what she has to say. She's changed my life. She changed, a lot of people that I know in her life, and she's, has the most amazing wisdom to share after, doing all these crazy cool things. So thank you again, Michelle. Glad to have you here, to usher in the new year. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. It was my pleasure.